Space Engineers 2 has been out for a week now, and the first wave of impressions is rolling in. Some players are loving the new building systems, while others are wondering if it was too early to drop it. So, is Space Engineers 2 worth buying right now, or should you wait? Well, that depends on who you are. If you're a pure builder, Space Engineers 2 might already be your new favorite thing. If you're more into engineering, survival, or multiplayer, you might want to take some time to consider. Now, I spent about 30 hours messing around with it and have to say it is exciting. It's fresh, it got some new amazing tools, but I also got some thoughts. So let's talk about what works, what is missing, and whether or not it's worth jumping into it right now. Alright, let's start with the biggest upgrade to the unified grid system. If you ever played Space Engineers 1, you know the pain of switching or combining large and small grids. Want to attach a small turret to a large ship? Nope. Need to mix big armor panels with small details? Get out your rotors and hinges and pray to Clang. The unified grid system, it's a game changer. Now, large and small grids exist on the same structure, meaning you can build intricate details without workarounds or mods. Want tiny pipes running along a massive industrial ship? You got it. Need delicate control panel inside a giant station? No problem. It just feels like this is how Space Engineers was always meant to be. It's hard to describe, but placing blocks now feels more organic, more natural. Like the game is finally letting you build the way you want, instead of working around limitations. And that's just the start. The new building tools make everything way more intuitive. Take partial copy mode, one of my favorite additions. Let's say you built the perfect asset for your ship. In Space Engineers 1, if you wanted to reuse that section, you had to physically cut the section out, blueprint it, and then copy and paste it in place, or rely on projectors, which worked, but let's be honest, it wasn't always the smoothest process. In Space Engineers 2, it's much simpler. Now you can just select a specific section of your build, copy and save it as a blueprint block, and then drop it into your toolbar like any other part. From there, it works just like a normal block. Place it down and boom, instant ship section. Now, how this will translate to survival mode, that is still a question mark. Right now in creative mode, it's an absolute game changer, but in survival, will we be able to mass produce these sections? Will we need projectors? That is something I'm really curious to see. Then there is the precision mode, another tool that makes a huge difference, especially for those who like fine-tuning your builds. You know how in Space Engineers 1, sometimes a block or a section doesn't want to snap where you wanted them? Precision mode lets you lock onto a specific surface, move a block freely along that plane, and place it exactly where you need it. No more fighting with the grid, no more awkward misalignments, it just works. That said, it's not all perfect yet. Mirror mode is still unreliable, sometimes it turns off when switching between blocks or when painting. And the block's transparency effect makes it hard to see orientation, especially in darker areas. Even with the flashlight on, the some blocks are still tricky to place. But these are small annoyances, not deal breakers. These are exactly the kind of things that will be polished over time. What's important is the foundation of the game, and it seems already fantastic. The unified grid system, partial copy mode, and precision mode don't just improve building, they change how we think about designing ships and stations, and for me that is exciting. Is it intuitive for new players? Well, that is a different story. As someone with a few years in Space Engineers 1 now, I can't say for sure how easy it is to pick up. I already know how things work, so I don't really struggle, but I do think that without a proper tutorial, new players will feel overwhelmed. Now, the legend above the toolbar helps a bit, and the info screen shows the key bindings, but that is not enough. A proper introduction in form of a tutorial is going to be essential for onboarding new players. Performance-wise, Space Engineers 2 definitely feels more optimized. Even on high settings, I was getting a solid performance, and the game just feels smoother in general. The lighting and reflections are a huge step up, and even at lower settings, the way light interacts with ships and asteroids adds a lot more depth to the world. But, as with most games, I think graphics are just for the initial wow factor. After a while, you stop noticing them. What truly keeps you engaged is gameplay, story, and world building, which Space Engineers 2 doesn't have yet. Now, I did notice a few performance hiccups, mostly when your game autosaves. You get this brief stutter, which can be pretty annoying when you're trying to do some precision building. The large debris fields, for example, if you crash two ships together, you will get 1,000 pieces and you will feel it. And multiplayer is not in the game yet, so we don't know how Space Engineers 2 will handle the big player-built worlds. This last point is a big one. Right now, worlds are very empty. No planets, space stations, no massive player-built colonies. So while it runs great at its current state, the real test will come with survival mechanics, big bases, and multiplayer grids starting to pile up. Now, one of the coolest things about Space Engineers 2 is how destruction actually looks now. In Space Engineers 1, when something exploded or got damaged, a block would deform and then disappear or just vanish outright. And while that worked, it never quite captured the damaged ship barely holding together vibe. Space Engineers 2 changes that. Now, certain functional blocks actually break apart in a way that feels more natural. Thrusters, landing gears, doors, mechanical parts, they don't just disappear, they shatter into debris, scattering across the battlefield. It looks way more cinematic, and when you see a ship taking heavy fire, it actually feels like it's taking damage rather than just absorbing hits until the block disappears. That said, basic armor blocks still behave like they did in Space Engineers 1. They dent, they damage, and then poof into dust. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still an improvement over SC1, but I do wonder if Keen will push things even further in the future. The current UI feels unfinished, functional, but too simple for a game about complex engineering. Coming from SC1, and I'm going to start saying SC1 and SC2 now because I'm tired of saying the whole word, and I think that is why Marek is calling it Space 1 and Space 2. Anyway, coming from SC1, or at least the modded versions, I'm used to interfaces that pack a lot more information at one glance, and the current layout just feels basic. The lines and plain icons don't really do much to set the mood. I would like to see a more vibrant, color-coded system, especially for the building blocks so you can quickly tell them apart. Control-wise, SC2 is mostly an improvement over SC1, but there are still some odd design choices that take getting used to. For the most part, movement and block placements feel great, especially with the addition of precision mode. The new building tools are more intuitive, and once you get used to them, they feel more natural than SC1s. But there are a few control changes that don't make sense, at least to me. Scrolling through the toolbar with the mouse wheel just feels off, especially since the toolbar is already numbered for quick access. It makes more sense to have the scroll wheel cycle through the variations of the selected block, like in Space Engineers 1. Painting block feels also less intuitive. Right now, you cannot paint blocks without also changing the color of the paint tool, which means if you want to use multiple colors, you have to manually switch every time between them from the paint tool. Again, these aren't game-breaking issues, but they do slow down the workflow. Alright, let's talk about what's not in Space Engineers 2 yet, because, as we know, this is not a completed game. So, if you boot up SE2 expecting to jump into survival mode, explore planets, or build with friends in multiplayer, you're gonna be staring at a very empty asteroid field. Right now, this is creative mode. No survival mechanics, no planets, no resource gathering, no functioning refineries, assemblers, conveyors, or power management. Just you, an empty space, and your creativity. And for me, that's a bit of a struggle. I love building with a purpose. Factories, bases, ships that actually function, but right now, everything is just a pretty shell. Building without conveyors and functional blocks feels weird. I've seen some builders like Engineered Coffee making manual conveyor systems out of the detailing blocks, and it is inspiring to see, but it's just for show. Right now, if you build a ship, it is just a hollow husk, like a movie prop. While that might sound disappointing to some, I understand why Keen chose to release it in this way. Looking at how Space Engineers 1 developed over time, their approach makes sense. Instead of launching everything at once and dealing with half-finished mechanics, Keen is focusing on the core systems first, getting creative mode, physics and grid mechanics stable before expanding into survival, planets and multiplayer. They structured SE2's development into vertical slices, each introducing major new systems rather than trying to build everything at the same time. It's a systematic approach, and while I don't know if it's the best way to do it, I do see why they're doing it this way. Now, some players feel let down by this first vertical slice, and that is because not everyone plays SC in the same way. So if you're the pure blood builder, you might already love this version, but if you're into exploration, PvP, or functional engineering, Space Engineers 2 might not feel for you yet. Personally, I hope future updates expand SC2's appeal soon, whether that's through modding, planets, or the survival mechanics. That brings us to survival mode, which isn't in the game yet, but when it arrives, I hope it feels more challenging than SE1. In SE1, once you had a refinery, an assembler, and a mining operation, survival wasn't really survival anymore. It was just about automation and logistics. And while that is fun, I think SE2 has a chance to add more depth to that gameplay loop. I don't want SE2 to turn into a hardcore survival game, but I do think there should be some layers to the challenge. So getting basic production running isn't the end of the struggle, but the beginning of a more complex journey. SE2 has a lot of potential. What excites me the most is the planets and volumetric water and the NPCs and faction dynamics. I think adding these are really gonna add so much more purpose to the game and give more opportunities. That said, I do wonder how long it will take for SE2 to feel as robust as SE1 is. My gut tells we're going to be looking at about 2 years before it starts to hit the marks we're used to, and maybe 4 to 5 years before it's truly complete. It's going to be a long haul, and one of the risks with early access is that the hype can fade before the game reaches its full potential. Rather than answering with yes or no, the better question is, do you want to grow with the game, or do you want to wait for the complete experience? If you love pure creative building, SE2 is already a fantastic playground. The new tools, precision placement, and modular blueprinting make construction smoother and more satisfying than ever before. If you're excited to learn the new mechanics as they develop, then getting in early has real benefits. By the time survival, planets, and multiplayer arrive, you will already be familiar with the new systems and ready to take full advantage of them. But if you're looking for a full survival experience, functional engineering, or multiplayer gameplay, you should be aware that is missing right now. Those features are coming, but they're not here yet. Now, I know there's a lot of debate around Space Engineers 2 right now, because some people feel like it is too early, it is too empty, or it's missing too many features, and those are valid concerns. But looking at what is already there, I can see the potential. Right now, it has a strong foundation, and if Keen delivers on their plans, this could become one of the best space engineering sandbox we ever had. For now, I'm just having fun with it. I cannot see where it goes next. But now I want to hear from you. Are you already playing Space Engineers 2? Or are you waiting to see how it develops? What is one of the features you are most excited for? Or the one you would like to see? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like, and I will see you again next time. This was Beeblebum. Goodbye for now.